The most important thing that I ever did in my entire life was lie to myself. Now, it wasn't the kind of lie that kept me stuck or made me disingenuous. It was the kind of lie that set me free. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you exactly how I did it, because once you understand it, everything changes and you can start today. Now, if you guys are new to the channel, my name is Randy. I'm the owner of High Risk Fitness. I have 15 years of coaching experience working with high-level athletes, special forces operators, and regular guys who just want to become the ultimate protectors of their families. Now, along the way, I have gained 90 pounds. I've started multiple businesses, and I've done many things that I never believed were possible. Now, I've thought long and hard about what has allowed this to happen, and it wasn't motivation, it wasn't discipline like people talk about so much these days. It was simply my identity. It was a shift in how I saw myself, and I'm going to explain to you how to make that shift today. Because the truth is that it doesn't take a year or months to do this, it only takes one day. Most men in America nowadays come home from work, sit down on the couch, eat chips, watch TV, go to sleep, and rot. Now, most people would say that this is a discipline problem, that it's something they just need to motivate themselves into doing. They just haven't listened to the right podcast yet. But the problem is not really motivation or discipline. It is their identity. It is who they see themselves as being. Now, think about every single person that you know, and this might be yourself, who has lost a bunch of weight and gained it back, or decided to start a business and worked on it for a week and then gave up and then started it all over again. This sort of thing happens constantly, and there is a specific reason why. It's because they never actually became that person. It was always a diet. It was always a program. It was something temporary. It was never, this is just who I am now. And then when the plan stopped, when the diet was over, when the program had ended, they went right back to who they were. But now I want you to think about the people who are successful, who are in shape, who do run big businesses. They don't have to talk about how they do it every single day. It requires zero discipline for them. It is just who they are. They don't know any other way. People ask me all the time how I stay disciplined to train and eat right and do all the things that I do. And the truth of the matter is that it requires none. I just do those things because that's just who I am. It's a second nature to me as brushing my teeth in the morning. So your problem right now is not your motivation or your discipline or your schedule. It's simply who you think you are. All of that stuff is downstream of your identity. So once we fix your identity, we will automatically fix all of those problems. But if you don't fix them, you will always be white knuckling your way through life, relying on the next motivational podcast that comes out. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because this is not woo-woo motivational stuff. This is actual neuroscience. And once you understand the mechanism behind this, all of this is going to make sense. There's a structure in your brain called the reticular activation system, or RAS. And the job of the RAS is very simple. It is to filter reality to be in line with what you believe to be true. Now, every second you take in millions of bits of information, but you notice almost none of it because your RAS is highlighting the things that you want to believe and suppressing the things that you don't. Here's a really simple way to understand it. So if you've ever bought a car and then you started noticing more of those cars on the road, the car didn't multiply. It's just that your awareness of that car changed. Now, the same thing happens with your identity. If you always believe that you're the kind of person that falls short, then you will fall short. Your RAS scans reality and finds proof to reinforce that thing. So every time that you miss a workout, every time that you eat fast food, every time you do some kind of behavior that you don't like, your RAS highlights that and reinforces that as your identity in your subconscious. But if you truly believe that you are the kind of man who finishes what he started, or you are the kind of man who is in great shape, you truly believe that, your RAS will find ways to reinforce that. All of the evidence for that will be highlighted. But the problem is that a lot of people don't truly believe that about themselves. They haven't deluded themselves into thinking that it's true yet. They're not comfortable lying to themselves. Your brain isn't built to show you the truth. It is built to reinforce and highlight what you believe to be true. So if you genuinely change a belief, then your RAS will find proof for that and then reality has no choice but to catch up. And this is the mechanism behind the thing that I'm about to show you. Now, most men are operating on this formula that keeps them stuck because they've been running the same software their entire life. And when it comes to achieving goals, most people have this flow of have, do, be. I have to have the thing before I can do the thing and then become the thing. Once I have the results, I'll feel confident. Once I have the money, I'll be entrepreneur, and so on and so forth. And it sounds logical because you are living in the truth, but it's the exact thing that is holding you back. Conor McGregor used to refer to himself as a champion before he had ever won a fight. Steve Jobs used to tell his team that they would get a project done in 2 weeks that they told him was going to take 2 months, and inevitably it got done in 2 weeks. Now, when I made my first big sale in business, I spent almost all of the money immediately. I bought new clothes, I bought a MacBook, and I started doing my work at like upscale coffee shops in town. Now, I hadn't made it yet, I wasn't even close, but I was tricking myself into thinking that I had. I was lying to myself. And in that first year, I went from making $50,000 to $750,000. The same thing happened with my training. I wanted to clean and jerk 350 pounds. If you guys don't know what a clean and jerk is, it's an Olympic weightlifting movement where you bring the bar from the ground to your shoulders and you put it over your head. You've probably seen it before on TV. Every time before I would train, I would watch videos of my favorite weightlifter, Dmitry Klokov, doing his clean and jerks, and I would convince myself in the gym that I was him. I did everything short of starting to speak Russian to myself. Now, was I delusional? 100%. But here's what I learned. A lie is simply a belief that you don't have enough proof for yet. And you build that proof in the same way that you built the beliefs that you currently hold. It's repetition, it is emotional reaction, and it's the outcome. So the formula shouldn't be have, do, be. It should be the opposite. Be, do, have. You become the man first. You have to act like he already exists. Your RAS then finds the proof and then reality catches up. So it is a lie, but eventually there will be enough evidence stacked that it will be the truth. If you start acting like and truly believing that you are that person, then you will become that person by virtue of doing the habits that that person does. But the key is that it has to be effortless because you cannot discipline yourself every single day for the rest of your life. Are you going to have to rely on discipline at some points along the way? Absolutely. But it's going to be a whole lot faster and a whole lot more consistent if you just believe that you are that person. If you can successfully lie to yourself and convince yourself that you are that man. Now, I want to tell you about one of my clients. His name's Craig. And when Craig first came to me, he was about 120 pounds overweight and he felt very defeated. He felt like he wasn't in control of his life. He had started projects and stopped them. He had tried to lose weight and he'd gained the weight back. And he was stuck in that loop over and over for years. He had the same identity and therefore got the same result. Now, we started training and we started tracking things more importantly. And in my app where he would log his workouts, he would see every single week him getting stronger. He would see himself losing weight on the scale. He would see his body changing in the mirror, and I would see it in his check-in photos. It was undeniable proof that he was becoming the man who he claimed to be. His RAS shifted because he saw the proof stacking up, and he had no choice but to believe it. So his brain stopped defending the old identity and started defending the new one, and a year later, he lost 120 pounds. And not only that, he got a huge promotion at work and he started his own business. Now, the stuff with work and business was not the goal, but it came as a consequence of that new identity of that man that he was, which was facilitated by the training. Now, shameless plug, the tracking system that I mentioned is something that I do with all of my one-on-one clients. So if you are trying to get in better shape, if you want to change who you are, if you truly want to make a long-term shift in your fitness and therefore your life, you can click the link in the description and you can apply for one-on-one coaching with me. But we're going to keep going because I want to show you guys the exact system that I use for this identity shift today. Now, what I'm going to walk you through is called the identity reset. And this is the exact system that I use for making this shift on a daily basis. Now, there are 3 specific components to the identity reset. Now, the first component of this is the future self narrative, and this is going to be the most powerful thing that puts you in the mindset of be, do, have. This is essentially a detailed description of who you are. You are going to write it in the context of you already being that man. This way, when you are faced with any kind of decision, you can reference this to decide if what you are going to do is in line with that person. Now, the first part of the future self narrative is the identity. I'm a man who's disciplined. I'm a man who does his meal prep. I'm the man who reads every night. I'm the man who has a successful business, whatever that is for you. The second part is going to be your standards, okay? So these are things that this man does and does not. I don't eat fast food. I don't watch porn. I do eat clean. I do train every day. And the third are going to be specific behaviors. So these are things that that man does on a daily basis. I track my lifts. I tell my wife I love her. I hug my kids every time that I see them. It doesn't necessarily matter what it is, as long as it is an example of the behaviors of who that man is that you are going to see yourself as being. So you're writing this as if it has already happened. That is the important part. Now, the fourth part is your environment, how you dress, who you spend time with, the things you keep in your house. Your environment has to reflect that man that you're becoming. So if you dress like a slob and the man that you're going to become doesn't dress like a slob, you need to write down how that man dresses. And the fifth one is outcomes. I am capable. I am strong. I am disciplined. I make $500,000 a year. Now, the key for the future self narrative is that you have to write it down on pen and paper. You can't type it out. It can't be on your phone. You have to make that mind muscle connection with your hand and the paper, writing the individual letters of this future self narrative. Now, you also have to read the future self narrative every single day. So you have to put it somewhere where it is highly visible. It could be on your nightstand, on the refrigerator, on the front of the door before you leave the house. I don't care if this sounds cheesy because it works. And if you want to actually change, you're going to have to do things that might make you feel a little silly. Because yes, to other people, this is going to look like something where you're faking it. But guess what? You are faking it until you make it. Now, every time you read this, your RAS is going to start finding proof of that man throughout your day. Essentially, what we're doing here is removing indecision and making sure that everything we do is in line with that person that we are. Now, with this future self narrative, you have another task. Every time that you do some kind of habit or some kind of behavior that is not in line with what that man does, you need to stop and write down again on a pen and paper the opposite of the thing you just did. Because I'm not saying that you're never going to slip up, it's going to happen, but it is incredibly important that when you do that, you immediately reinforce the new identity. Now, the second component of this is called the morning routine, okay? The morning routine and how you start your day is how you're going to flow through the rest of your day. So if you own the morning, you own the day. And I'll walk you guys through what my morning routine is. So when I get up in the morning, the first thing that I do is I turn my shower on the coldest possible setting, which sometimes out here in Arizona, it's not really that cold, but I do the best that I can. Then I jump in without hesitation, and it has to be without hesitation. I don't ease my way in. I don't get used to the water. I decide to do something uncomfortable that I don't want to do right when I wake up. And what I'm doing is I'm reinforcing the belief, I'm reinforcing my narrative that I'm the kind of man that does things even when they're uncomfortable and even when I don't necessarily want to do them. Now, I don't stay in the shower for long. It's not an ice bath. I'm in there for 5 or 10 seconds, just long enough for me to get a little shot of adrenaline and wake up. The next thing that I do, if I have enough time, is I will go out on a 30-minute walk and I'll get sunlight in my eyes first thing in the morning to set my circadian rhythm so that my sleep is better at the end of the day. I get some fasted morning cardio in. Okay, so some fat burning effect there, some fitness. But that walk also helps me get my best, most creative and important ideas in before my day starts. And a core component of this morning walk is that I do this before I look at my phone, because once you look at your phone, the stress of the world sets in. Now your day is no longer your own. You're responding to people, you're reading emails, you're looking at terrible things that are happening on the news, you're doom scrolling on Instagram, and now your day no longer belongs to you, it belongs to the information that you are consuming. So the morning routine is not necessarily some kind of productivity hack. It is simply the first thing that you're going to do every single day to reinforce the identity of who you are. Now, the third component of this are your daily non-negotiables. So I want you to pick 3 things that you are going to do every single day, no matter what. And these don't have to be anything lofty. They don't really even have to be that meaningful. Hopefully they'll be things that are good for you, but it's not necessarily something that has to be grand. They need to be things that you can relatively easily achieve every single day. This could be reading 5 pages of a book, drinking a certain amount of water, texting my mom and telling her I love her. It literally doesn't matter what it is. They just have to be things that you're going to hold yourself to every day. Now, with these 3 daily non-negotiables, you also have to either write these out or print them out, but you need to physically check off a box every single day to prove to yourself that you're doing them, because by virtue of checking that box, again, we are reinforcing with the RAS that we are the kind of person that does those things, that moves throughout our day with intent, that lives a regimented lifestyle. Because every time you check that box, you are stacking a vote for the RAS to reinforce that person that you're becoming. So here's exactly what I want you to do today. Not next week. I want you to do this today. Right when this video ends, you are going to write your future self narrative with a pen on a piece of paper with the 5 components: identity, standards, behaviors, environment, and outcomes. And you need to write it like it is already true, like you are describing yourself. Step 2, write out your morning routine. What are you going to do every single time you wake up in the morning? It doesn't have to be anything time consuming like what I do. If you don't have time and you're really busy, it could be as simple as getting up and doing 10 push-ups. But you have to own your morning. Now remember, every time you do something that is not in line with your future self narrative, you need to stop and write down the opposite of what you just did. Craig didn't walk into the gym and lose 120 pounds. I didn't gain 90 pounds of muscle. I didn't build 2 successful businesses. I became the person that did those things naturally. All of that stuff was just reality catching up to the identity that I chose. That is 100% available to you. Now, the identity reset works, but it works really well when your training and your fitness is also in line with the person that you want to become. I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite quotes ever from somebody named William Ernest Henley from his poem Invictus. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.